Today, I'm going to be sharing with you what I consider to be the number one most important principle, idea, concept, call it whatever you want to call it, as far as your succeeding in life is concerned. And before I share with you what I consider this principle to be, I want you to just take a few moments to just kind of narrow it down. Try to see if you can guess what the one, if we were to chunk success down, what would you say is the common denominator of success? Think about it. You know, you're probably thinking, oh, it's having a vision. And that's true. It's having a burning desire, being persistent, being goal-oriented, knowing what you want out of life, and so on and so forth. And all those principles are true. But I got something to share with you today. The most important principle as far as your success is concerned is knowing who you are. Knowing your identity. And I'm going to start out by sharing some quotes with you on the subject of knowing your identity. You know, at the Temple of Delphi in Greece, there is an inscription that goes, "Man, know thyself." The Jews say, "Man, know your God." And in the book of Daniel, we're told the people who know their God will do great exploits. So I ask you again, who are you? You know, that is the most profound question, as far as I'm concerned, that you will ever answer. Because the answer to that question determines how much or not you achieve in life. The answer to that question determines your altitude. The answer to that question sets the limits to your achievements. The answer to that question determines how far the circumference of your life. The answer to that question determines whether you're going to live a life in bondage or you're going to live a limitless, boundless life. So who are you? You know, if you're like most people, you're probably saying, well, I am a father. That's not really who you are, because that's just a role you play. Somebody else might say, well, I'm a husband or I'm a wife. Well, that's still not who you are. That's just your marital status. And I can hear somebody say, well, you know, I'm an American or I'm a Russian or I'm French. Again, that's not who you are. That's your nationality. And I can see the big shot coming out now and saying, well, I'm a computer engineer, I'm a managing director, I'm this and this and that. Again, that still doesn't tell us who you are. That is your profession. That tells us what you do. But who are you? Somebody else might say, well, you know, I'm a born-again Christian, or I'm a Buddhist, or I'm a Muslim. Again, that's your religious affiliation. Somebody else might say, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm independent. That's your political affiliation. Who are you? Who are you? Well, we can go a step further. Since we know you can be all of those roles, but you're more than them. So who are you? The next thing I want to ask you, somebody might say, well, you know, I know I'm in here somewhere. Okay, let's try it. If we were to ask your body to pinpoint where you are, what will your body tell us? You know, if we look at your fingers, you operate there, but you're not your fingers. I'm sure you know people without fingers, without arms, who still function in life. And I'm sure you know people without feet, without eyes, who still function. So we know you're not in your body. And when the person passes away, the body is lying down, but the person is gone. Somebody else might say, well, you know, I'm a mental being. I am mind. Well, you're not a mental being. You're more than everything we've been talking about. And that's the point we're trying to get at. Because you see, the moment you try to identify yourself by a role that you perceive to be your identity, you limit yourself. You're more than that. You are not your mind. Otherwise, we would have been told in Romans chapter 12 and verse 2 to become transformed by the renewing of your mind. It is the you that renews your mind. It is the you that plays all those roles. Father, mother, brother, sister, Democrat, Republican, you name it. So who are you? What is your identity? If you are not the roles you play, you are not your body, you're not your mind. Who are you? Well, I got great news for you, and you ought to be excited. Because if you are a student of the Bible, you'll know in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 26, we are told that you and I are created in the image and likeness of God. And whether you take it from a scientific point of view or from a religious point of view, the answer, the conclusion is the same. So, if you are the image and likeness of God, well, let's find out some of the qualities that make up God. And by the way, if you're one of those people who get hung up about the definition of God, trust me, I am not trying to persuade you one way or another. There are 1,000,001 religions out there. I got mine, I like it, and it doesn't really matter whether you want to share mine. But here's the point I'm trying to make to you, though. All of those religions put together, they all acknowledge that you and I are created in the image and likeness of God. So for the sake of time, let me just share with you some qualities of God. And here's what I want you to keep in mind. Whether or not you believe it, everything God is, you are. Because if God is the only creator and all that he created is good and you and I are his image and likeness, then everything God is, you and I are. And the challenge is we fail to see ourselves that way, which is why we end up having and experiencing things in life that we don't want, because we just will not, we'll lack the courage to rise up, to be like the Joshua and Caleb of the Old Testament, who identify themselves with God and got the results they want. And as I mentioned to you, the challenge you and I and almost everybody faces in this world today has everything to do with identity. So who are you? Well, let's look at some of the qualities of God. We know God is timeless, God is limitless, God is changeless, God is boundless. We know God is prosperous, we know God is abundant, we know God is creative, we know God is wise, we know what God is invincible. Check this out. Every last one of those qualities that I've just mentioned, that's who you are. That's why trying to limit yourself or identify yourself by the roles you play, by how big your muscles are, or how intelligent you are, means nothing. You are more than all of that. To kind of summarize it, you are spirit, you are vibration, you are energy, you are invincible. That's who you are. That's why no one can really figure out who you are. And that's why sometimes you can't really figure who you are out, because you're always trying to limit yourself. And what I'm trying to recommend to you now is that you need to understand that you are bigger than anything that can happen to you. You need to realize that nothing can happen in your world unless you give your consent. And I hope you join me in this study of identity, because I'm telling you guys, I've been studying the subject of success for over 20 years. And when I say over 20 years, I mean serious study. And I've arrived at a conclusion that there's nothing more important than knowing who you are. Because once you know who you are, once you realize that you're the offspring of a deathless soul, once you realize that you're the offspring of a limitless, boundless, changeless, infinite God, I'm telling you, there's nothing you can do. All you need to do is decide what you want, set your heart on it, and go after it. I want to thank you very much. And remember, at the end of the day, it is not what you do that determines who you are. It is what you believe that determines who you are. So I hope you'll believe some of the things I've shared with you today. Thank you.